may have to turn it down. Hey, my name is April Swafford. I am a Talladega County native, and my husband and I have a small homestead, A&R Farm. I am a spinner, weaver, gardener, small livestock owner, all that kind of stuff. To tie back into what everybody else has talked about today, when we talk about the first, sorry, I move a lot. When we talk about clothing, we didn't always wear clothes like we have today. Some of the earliest graves that they have excavated, they have found people wearing string skirts that were made from some sort of plant fiber. So until we had domesticated sheep and stuff like that, you really didn't spin cloth because, who's going to chase a sheep through the wood to try to get the fur off of them to spin, right? But once we started domesticating animals and sheep, that's when people started spinning, and they have excavated in Austria. Textile archaeology is really hard because textiles disintegrate so easy. But there's been salt mines in Austria where they have found a lot of textile excavation, that they've got some good samples. They've also found samples in bogs. For whatever reason, a bog is an anaerobic environment, so your textiles will hold up there. And they show that spinning and weaving is pretty much the same then as what we do now. Now we've got more advanced equipment now and that sort of stuff, but basically you're going to spin one way or the other, and it's always been that way. When I started spinning, and it's like anybody that does a craft will agree, you start on a high level and then you work down on all those little rabbit trails you can go down. So when I started spinning, I bought something like this. This is the commercial preparation. So there are people that predominantly raise sheep for their wool. So they will spin them usually in the spring, and that's really interesting because they don't usually shear their own sheep. You have people that travel around, companies that travel around and shear sheep. And I saw an ad not long ago that they were already taking appointments. They would be traveling in March. So, people get on the list. These people will come in, and it is amazing to watch them shear these sheep because they'll have a sheep sheared in about 2 minutes flat. They'll flip them on their back, they'll shear them, they'll flip them back up, where I'd be there sweating and cussing 2 hours later trying to get it off of that sheep. So anyway, they have it done, and then they send their wool to a commercial mill who will prep the wool for them, get them a good preparation, and then other people, that's all they want to do is dye the wool. So that's where I started. And as the more I read into it, the more I watched, I thought, well, what if I start with the fleece straight off a sheep? So that is what I've gotten to now, is that I will take, and you can order it. I am lucky that there's a girl in Huntsville that raises baby doll sheep, and every year when she shears, she'll say, hey, how many fleeces do you want? So I'll get fleece from her. This is what it looks like. Now this has been washed, but when you get a fleece off of a sheep, it is full of lanolin. Lanolin on a sheep is what helps them shed water. You'll see when you buy lotion a lot of times it's got lanolin in it. So there is a process that you can use to save that lanolin, but I think it's really messy and really long, and so far I've not gone down that rabbit hole. But maybe next year when I come back, I will have. So when I get a fleece, I'll separate it out, and people do a pretty good job of cleaning it, but you'll still have some hay in there and some seeds sometimes. I don't usually find bugs, but I find a little bit of everything else. So you wash it and get that lanolin off, and then you've got to prepare it somehow. So what I do at that point is I take me a piece of fleece, and I either, depending on the size of my fleece, will use my combs, and I'll go back and forth till I get them all laid out one way. This will clean out some of the dirt and that sort of stuff. Or if I'm looking at a long lock, so this would have been what was on the sheet, and this was what was been hanging on the side. This is from an Icelandic sheep, which is a dual-coated sheep. So I've got really long fibers on the outside, and I've got those soft, downy fibers on the inside. So if I have a really long lock, I'm going to take these deadly-looking instruments, which are called combs, and I'm going to load them on, just like this right here, and then I'm going to pull it off. So the first thing this is going to do is it's going to pull off all of those really long fibers. The really long fibers are the coarse ones. Those were the ones that in the Viking age they would have made cordage from, because it would have been really, really strong. The downy inner coat of a dual-coated sheep, and not all sheep are dual-coated, but this is just one I picked up, is really soft, really dense, and really warm. So that's what they would have made their clothing from. Now, sheep is different microns or different sizes, and depending on the micron and the characteristics of the sheep wool, that you may be able to weave something that you could wear next to you, something that you might want to make a baby sweater out of or something like that. Other things are much more coarse, and those coarse things are probably what you think about when you think about wearing anything made out of wool, that scratchy kind of feeling. So you want to make sure when you're spinning a fleece that you know what its characteristics are. So I don't make, for example, a sweater to give somebody for their baby and then it breaks them out all over and it's all scratchy. So I want to know what my characteristics are as I'm weaving it so I know what my end product wants to be. So once I have my fiber prepped and it's ready to go, it's going to look, and it may look different depending on, there's different preps, but this is just some baby doll that I have prepared on my combs, on my cards, and I have rolled up. So when I start spinning, I spin from the end. And to take a fleece that I have prepared and make a string or a piece of yarn out of it is just twist. So I can do it with my fingers. I can pull it out and I can twist, and I can pull it out and I can twist, and I can pull it out and I can twist. You can see that's going to take you a long time. When they first started spinning and what they excavate, when they get into places where there were villages and stuff like that, is they use drop spindles. All that is a long piece of wood of some sort with a weight on the bottom or on the top. Normally what they would find would be bottom whirl, I think, but they find a lot of those weights or those whirls that were on those drop spindles that are made out of rock. So, you know, they don't disintegrate, so they find a lot of those. But that's how they started. I don't know what year the spinning wheel was invented, but the first spinning wheels that they made, and if you look at places like Ireland where there was a lot of spinning going on, especially people that were in a maritime location, I guess, that were fishermen and places like that where they did do a lot of spinning and weaving. They had big walking wheels. So that's the one you see with the big wheel out here, and somebody would flick it with their finger, and then they would take their wool and they would draft it, is what this is when I'm pulling it off, and they would walk out, and then they would have to walk back in to wind it on. Because as you spin it, you got to wind it on something. They finally, at some point, made wheels that had pedals on them. So what I have is a double pedal Ashford Traveler wheel. And I do those pedals and it makes my wheel turn. And as that wheel turns and I feed my fleece in from the side, it puts that twist on it. Wool is like hair and then it's got shafts on it, so as I twist it together, it holds onto itself. Now, that's not true in all animal fibers. For example, this right here is fiber that I have 2 Angora rabbits that I took off, that I sheared my rabbits. It does not have that shaft property, so when you spin it, it is a little bit harder to hold on itself, and it is also very flyaway. You're not going to have a whole lot of flyaway from a wool prep, but you will. If I spin just Angora for my rabbits, I have hair and stuff flying everywhere. So normally people will, if they're going to spin Angora, they'll mix it with a little bit of wool, which is what this is, because it helps it hold onto itself, and you don't have as many flyaways in it. Now, if you happen to get a nice piece of wool fabric or a piece of wool clothing that somebody's made for you, you want to be very careful on how you compare it, because look at this gorgeous. I'm going to show this piece. Markel made this piece right here. This is felted. This is made from the same thing as all of this. She started with something like this, and she laid it out in the colors that she wanted, and then she started with hot water and soap, right, and agitated it. If you agitate wool, if I took this right here and I put it in my hot water with my soap, and I did this right here to clean it good, I'd end up with a big mat of felt is what I'd end up with. So you have to be very careful in what you're going to do with your fleece, because you can either end up with felt or you can spin it into wool. So I have to be very careful, and I just have to push mine up and down and then bring it out. But felting I've decided is going to be my next learning project. So you want to make sure, again, if you get a gift that somebody's made you out of wool, that you don't wash it in the washer and then throw it in the dryer, because that is going to agitate it, and you're going to have a felted sweater at that point that will probably fit a child. It will shrink a lot, and it will be felted. Markel said this started, let me show you how long it is. It started on an 8-foot table. So that tells you how much shrinkage that you have on something like that. The other thing that I brought with me, and I don't know how much time I have, is this is called an ankle loom. Now, the loom itself is historically speaking, a fairly new invention. The weaving is not. If you look at any pictures, paintings from the medieval times, and you see the ornate trim that they have on the clothes, it was done in this fashion right here. Not on this loom, but in this fashion. And these cards right here, and you don't have to have the cards to do it, but it makes it easier, are how they did it. Again, archaeologically speaking, they found a lot of these cards that were made out of wood or made out of bone that people used to make this trim. So depending on how you load these cards, and if you turn them frontwards or backwards, you can end up with some very, very elaborate trim made from something like this. So this was I'm going to learn how to do this year. Let's see. I think that's about all. Do I have anything else? Any questions on anything? This is cotton. Cotton is a plant-based fiber, just like flax, which is what linen's made out of, is a plant-based fiber. Hemp is a plant-based fiber that they make. Bamboo is another one. So those are all plant-based items that you make fiber out of. And you prep them just a little bit different, and they spin just a little bit different. So if I look at, this right here is from a cashmere, a cashgora goat. So see how long that block is? These goats are beautiful, and they hang. This hangs just like this. Now this is a clean one. This is a dirty one, so that kind of gives you a different. So that's how long it would be. If I clipped it off that goat, it would be that long. When I look at this piece of cotton, if I take this little bowl of cotton and I start pulling that cotton off, that's how long that cotton is. It is much easier to spin something that is longer, to a certain extent. I like to spin about 3 to 5 inches, than something that's really, really long or something that's really, really short. They make, and if you ever see pictures of Gandhi was a spinner, and he spun cotton, and he had what they call I think they say it's chakra, but it's a flat loom of a sort that they spun cotton on. So that's what you'll see pictures of him spinning, and that's what he was spinning, and that's what he was spinning on. So this was local grown cotton. Yes, I guess that's all. Any questions on anything? I can talk for days on fiber. I tell people I'm a wealth of useless knowledge. If you need a triple or six partner, I'm your girl, but my family's good. They've heard all this speech, so they don't have